the folks who are visiting us remotely today, and thank you so much to the lovely SQL Bits volunteers who are donating their time to sit here and chat with you guys virtually while Catherine and I are up here. My name is Blythe Morrow, and I am I run a marketing agency. We specialize in the data platform. I tell the data platform story every single day. I have the best job in the world because I get to talk about SQL Server without actually having to develop any T-SQL. And so I'm typically I'm kind of like the marketing girl in the community. I've been in the SQL community since I graduated university way too long ago, and I have a passion for writing and for messaging. Writing is my love language. It's how I communicate. And it's really how I express myself. And so I'm here today to talk to you about services and marketing, and then I have the wonderful Catherine Brown here as my partner who's going to talk to you a little bit about selling. So just a quick show of hands, how many folks are consultants today? You run your own business? Great. And how many want to move into consulting? You're thinking about it. You're thinking it might be the next step. Okay. So that's good. So we've got kind of like half of the room are working consultants. That's awesome. So this is gonna cover. Let me move to the agenda. This is going to cover both, and be valuable for both those who are looking to move into it and who are taking that first step and trying to understand what their blind spots are, and those folks who have been consultants for a while. And so we're going to talk about a couple things. I'm going to go through understanding your customer and then getting clear on what you offer based on what your customer wants, which is a huge mindset shift for the technical consultant. And then we're going to take both of those pieces and we're going to go through how to put them in market and how to start developing lead generation and demand for your services. I'm not going to talk about it for long because we want to give Catherine a ton of time to go through the hardest thing that technical people have to do when they build their business, and that is ask other people to buy their time. I know it's really difficult, and she really changed my business when she came in and taught me at PaperSword how to do this. And so I'm so excited that you guys get to get this opportunity to work with her. So let's start really, really simply, okay? And for those of you who are in the pre-con, you've probably heard this first little bit. Let's start with we need to define what value you bring to the table for your customers. And so it's not necessarily, that you code in T-SQL or that you provision Power BI for big corporations or that you are a consultant for Azure Synapse. Okay, that is the technology that you have skills in. But what value do you bring to your customers and what problems are you solving for them? Okay. One of the things that a lot of technical folks struggle with when they're building their businesses, of course, is building a pipeline and bringing in more leads. And that means that you have to have a lot of conversations with people who have no idea what you do and no idea what the technical expertise of what you do. And it really doesn't matter. So when I talk to people that I'm marketing to, I'm not talking to them about email marketing conversions or Google ad campaigns or product marketing frameworks. I'm talking to them about how they build their story, how they tell their narrative to their target audience and to bring them in. And so actually, Catherine, when you talk to your customers, what's the value? What do you hear?
Right, so I have all these courses. I have group coaching. I have courses that I have developed. And when I've asked my customers why they bought from me or what the benefit was, because I'm trying to understand this question of value, they've said things like, I bought from you because you helped me believe I could sell better. That's what they said was valuable. You helped me believe I could sell better. You did that through the courses, but I was leading with the courses, not with belief.
Right.
So that was really helpful for me to poll them and ask them that.
Right. So And thank you. So
Yeah.
the first thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you, I'm just going to show you an example of how we move your level of conversation that you're having with your clients when you're selling your database performance packages, or you're selling your data warehousing engagements, and we're going to elevate that to how you actually add value for the business. So the first thing I want to show you is this is Data Simplified is a company I made up. I don't think this is, I wrote this, so you want to call your business Data Simplified, you can have it. It's yours. It's yours. I know somebody's going to Google it right now and be like, oh no, it actually exists. And I made up a company that exists. But so Data Simplified is the next generation of database managed service provider that leverages data analytics and automation to drive your enterprise around data. We guide you along your data journey and undertake the responsibility of monitoring and managing your databases, absolving you from the responsibility and making you forget you have them at all. Okay. So you read this and you inherently know that it is confusing, right? Right? We can start from that, from like that level of understanding. If you are trying to sell to, you're trying to sell to a CFO of a nonprofit that needs some work in their, needs some work building their analytics solution on top of Razor's Edge. I don't know. It's going to be very, very difficult for that person to understand what value you bring, because it uses a bunch of insider language that moves through confusion, and it's quite. It's all about Data Simplified and what they do and what expertise they have, and it's not about the company and the problem, the company that they are working for and the problem that they solve, all right? And so the best thing you can do is to be clear and to not have your customers move through confusion. And the way we do that is we identify what our customers ultimately want and what's getting in the way of those wants. And because you're marketing to a business, we call that B2B marketing, you can really do that in two ways. You can talk to the actual person that you're working. If you sell to DBAs, you can talk about how if you take my training, or if you hire me when you are on vacation, that you're going to be a more successful, well-rounded professional. You're selling to a person. But I'm going to talk about right now selling to the business, okay? So what is the problem that the business is experiencing, and why do they need you? Well, they might need you because their production databases keep going down, and they can't work, they can't sell, right? It might be that they are losing their minds because their competitors just got ransomwared, and they have no idea if their database is secure, right? And so it's not about the fact that you can build an availability group. That is not the value that you're bringing. It's in knowing that by hiring an expert in database security. I was just talking to Denny Cherry, so I have database security on the mind. So if you hire someone like that, someone like Denny, it's not that you're the best at setting up, connecting your Active Directory, for example. It's the security that they're going to solve the problem of, can I sleep at night knowing my data is secure, right? So with Data Simplified, right, what I did is I took this message and I changed it to make the language address the problem and not the data analytics, automation, blah, 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 right? So what I did is I changed it to a very, very simple statement around you have problems with your database, and you just need to focus on your business and leave the servers. So I just wrote this. And so I do this work all day. This is kind of like if you guys have to write a stored procedure, you're just like, whatever. This is very simply, I take complicated language and I bring it back down to simplified language. But I challenge you to do this in your business, because when you do this and when you understand what problems you solve, you can create packages and pricing that reflect the gravity of the problem. And then once you create packages and pricing, you can create marketing that helps sell each of those packages. And so the language you use as a consultant or as a consulting company to describe what you do directly correlates to how successful your business will be when you're starting it. No pressure. All right, so let's go ahead and I want to talk about the 10x rule. I'm going to move on from messaging. Catherine, we could literally do a pre-con and talk about this stuff all day. But okay, so let's make the assumption that you have done the work to identify what your customer wants and the problems that you're solving for that business. Okay? I recommend for folks who are newer consultants, technical consultants, or who are interested in building a team of consultants. If you want to move into more of a consulting company or a managed service provider, this is a really great product marketing framework you can use. It is not the only one, obviously. But I've implemented this in a couple of MSPs and it has worked really, really well. And I call it the 10x rule of 3. Okay, so I mean, you're probably looking at this and you can understand what the 10x rule of 3 is. Essentially, when you start talking to a company, even if they've found you through a blog post or your website, and your website is amazing, they don't know you, right? You are very unlikely to sell a managed service right off the bat, unless they have, seen you and followed you religiously and they want to take that leap, chances are slim. So what I always recommend is you have, and I did this I'm still on the database managed service, kind of like performance tuning track here. Your consulting business might be a little bit different. But I love the assessment level service where you're coming in, you're doing a SQL Server health check, right? You're running SP Blitz, or you're using SQL Sentry, and you're diagnosing a lot of the problems that they're having in their database. You're generating a report. You're demonstrating that you have the expertise to do the job, right? And then what you want to do in your pricing is you want to create a project-level remediation service where you say, okay, you guys solve these problems that we have out of the assessment, and we'll solve these problems. And then with the whole intention of you getting the environment stable and available enough that you are now executing a managed service and monitoring that. So it's kind of like this, 150,000 pounds divided by 12. Now, for those at home who might be stateside, or for those in the room who are from the US, please note that the pricing in Europe is so different than the pricing in US. If you looked at this and you were like, that's $1,500 for an assessment, pearl clutching, that's so low. The pricing in the UK is just a little bit lower. But this is a pretty reasonable price, I think, for an assessment. I've seen them go up to 2,500 pounds. And then, a managed service, most of the time you're basing it based on instance anyways. Okay, so this is just one example of a product marketing framework. And the way you would message these is based on that high-level, value-based message that we did for Data Simplified, okay? I'm going to talk about marketing now, which is distinctly different than messaging. I want to talk about how you can develop services for each of your categories of prices, or each of your services. So I have 3 here that I think you all need to get very, very comfortable using and doing. Catherine's going to talk a little bit more about them. A lead magnet. You've all seen this. Tech folks are really, of all of the industries, you guys are the most comfortable with lead magnets because you grew up professionally with white papers. This is really the new white paper. Okay, so you're creating something of value. You can put it on your website. You can use it in your sales conversations. You can use it as follow-ups for the folks that you meet here at SQL Bits, and that's where the email sequences come from. Now, before I hand this over to Catherine, I want to just talk about you are going to have different email marketing sequences for each of your packages, which is why we do messaging, and then we do product marketing and product definition, service definition, and then we do lead generation with email. You've got to be very clear as to what you're selling and at what stage of relationship you are with the customer before you move into developing your emails. All right, so the email that I would send to a company that I want to sell a managed service to is different than the email I'm going to send at the assessment level, right? Because the value that you're getting and the problem you're solving is different. And so I recommend doing a lot of email sequences. You can use something very affordable like MailChimp, which is, I think, free up to 500 contacts the last time I checked. And you can create timed sequences with automation. And the more you have of these, if you can create industry-based email sequences, if you can create, and lead magnets, if you can create database maturity, like where they are in their problems with their data platform, if you can create email sequences based on that and somehow segment that market, you'll have more success in terms of sales. And the third thing you need, I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, I could go on with LinkedIn and Google Ads and retargeting and all of the ways of bringing people to your website and the website. But I think when we're first starting out and when we're thinking about consulting, if you have 2 marketing channels for lead generation and you get comfortable having a sales conversation, you can grow from there. You can fill your pipeline, you can make your $250 a year, your $300 a year, and then you can get primed to bring on your second person and then move into more channels. And so I want to pass it off to Catherine here to talk about those sales conversations. And we're so lucky to have her, so.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you. Great. So Blythe and I have worked together for a couple years, and transitioning from this slide, what I want to say about sales conversations here is that one of the things I really appreciate as, I would call myself a sales professional who's very marketing experienced, but I was a salesperson, technical recruiter right out of college, and then moved into enterprise, big ticket sales for consulting services, and then I now have my second consulting firm for selling. So what I love about this slide, it looks very simple, but this is actually the intersection of how even big companies should be doing their sales and marketing together, because you can have sales conversations that you can reignite, especially with old leads when someone has gone away or not responded or been quiet. If you have lead magnets and email sequences, you have something to share. You have something to say besides the dreaded just checking in, which I'll talk about in a minute. But there's all kinds of sales phrases we use that really diminish our power and feel ick about the process. So speaking of ick, here's the truth about the business owner who starts a firm. Doesn't matter if you're a product firm, it doesn't matter if you're a services firm. When you're the owner, most people who develop any kind of company, most people were not full-time salespeople first. Let me get a quick show of hands. Would you raise your hand if you thought when you grew up that you would be in sales? Not one person, including me. I was going to be a professional musician. So nobody thinks they're going to do this. And here's the ugly truth. You are the salesperson until you hire people to sell for you. And then the even crazier thing is that then you're still the salesperson because you are going to be involved in big accounts. It's going to be a long time before you don't ever do that again, and you'll probably always be involved. I always want to encourage founders to become comfortable selling, because also sales reluctance is highly contagious. So if you don't like it and you secretly have a bad attitude about it, here's the thing. It's not going to be a secret to everyone else. They're going to know because they can tell. So it's really important to get some basic proficiency and feel okay about that. I wrote a book last year. It's called How Good Humans Sell. And in the first 2 chapters of that book, I talk about some research that I did. We're going to do a little mini experiment here. And for our folks at home, you can participate as well. I did some anonymous surveying of business owners and of business-to-business salespeople who sold across all industries. And I wanted to test this theory. And my theory that I was testing is that I believe people because they do not want to be perceived as too pushy, and because they don't like the word sales, this dramatically impacts their behavior. But I had to prove it because this was just a hypothesis that I wanted to test. So we're going to do a very, very abbreviated version of this hypothesis here in the room. If you have your notes app on your phone, or you have a notebook in front of you, or your computer, I'm going to just count to 20 seconds in my head. I don't even have a timer up here. I'm just going to count to 20 seconds. And I'm going to ask you, I'm going to say a word for you, and I want you to write down, and folks at home, please do this as well. You can use the chat. That would be really fun. Maybe later our moderator can read us from the chat. But I want you to write down all of the words or phrases that come to mind when I say the word salesman. Salesman. Please write down for 20 seconds, write down every word or phrase that comes to mind when you hear salesman. I'll give you 5 more seconds. Are we getting any in the chat? No? Okay. 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 You can go ahead and stop. I know we could go for 2 hours. Are there a few? Could you read them? I'll read out to them what people said. Pushy. Pushy. Twice. Dishonest. Overpromise. Ugh, it's hurting my sales-loving heart. Okay. Anybody else want to call out a few more here? Ouch. Untrustworthy, sleazy, lying, and pushy. I got some nods here. Avoid at all costs. Exactly. Okay, so I did this. I did an empirical study, meaning I had statistically significant sample, which means I polled a lot of people, and this is what they said. Aggressive, cheesy, pushy, sleazy, doesn't listen, used cars, annoying, obnoxious, bad hair, rejection, avoid at all costs. Right?
Bad hair.
And you all know how word clouds work. The biggest words were said the most. So what I also thought was interesting was extrovert. Extrovert came up like, I actually get asked that a lot. Do you have to be an extrovert to be good at sales? The answer is no. And look how big doesn't listen is. That is really sad. It's really sad. So you're in good company. This is actually what lots of people think. But here's the scary thing, business owners, consulting firm owners. The majority of the people who were polled are the people you want to hire to sell for you. They think this too. They think this too. We all don't want to be that person. We all don't want to be that way. So one of the things that I talk about how to be a good human who sells is to help you have ways to work through that, because everyone has hesitancy which affects their behavior, including me. I have to use all the tools that I teach for myself when it's time to do my own follow-up. So let's talk about what those look like. I'm going to share 3 common mistakes. I call them the 3 novice sales mistakes that you want to avoid. So if you're not very experienced in selling, these are for sure things you're going to do that you want to avoid. And even if you're very experienced in selling, I hope you'll find some things that you think, I'm going to try that. That would be really cool. That's my hope. Okay, so if you want to be unsuccessful in selling, I'm kind of, being a little bit tongue-in-cheek and coming at this from the negative. If you want to be unsuccessful in selling, the first thing to do is to confuse the first call, which I call a discovery call, confuse it with your presentation. Okay, what am I saying here? We're so excited when the work that Blythe and our in-house marketing firms do. We're so excited that we have a live one who wants to talk with us that we just show up and throw up, right? We just talk. We're just so excited. That is not the purpose of the first call. What I call a discovery call, it does not mean it doesn't matter if they're a referral. It doesn't matter if they came in through your website. It doesn't matter if they're a conference lead from your booth. I don't care how you got their name. The first call is not the only call you're going to have. The purpose of the first call is to build a relationship, to start to build more trust, and to confirm whether you can help them. That's all you have to know. Is this a marketing lead or a sales lead? Is this an urgent need? And am I qualified to help them? That's all you have to do. I usually speak for 20 minutes or less on my first call. You do not have to do that. If your prospect is agreeable and you want to go 45 minutes or an hour, you can move into more qualifying conversations. But this is what I want you to take from this slide. People trust you when you talk less and they talk more. It's the craziest thing. But there's all this psychology research that says they need to talk, your prospect, your potential client needs to be doing 70% of the talking, and you need to do 30% of the talking. There is no way you can give a presentation of services or a demonstration and do only 30% in that first call. There's no way you can do it. So that means that you have to shift your thinking and decide, what's the purpose of this first call? It's really for me to get to know them and understand, to Blythe's earlier point, understand what they value. The way you get this is by having what questions and how. Okay, that's the golden rule. What and how. If you ask what and how do you know? How do you know that? That's so interesting. What are your plans? Tell me more about that. Those open-ended questions get them talking, and they will feel connected to you, and they will trust you if you don't show up and just talk the whole time about your credibility. What if you pitch the wrong thing? What if you don't emphasize the right thing? You're at risk of that if you don't get to know them first. Okay? Second common mistake is because we don't want to be the people on the word cloud. We don't want to seem too pushy. So then what happens is we have all this kind of mamby-pamby vague language. And vague language includes saying things at the end of an email like, let me know if you're interested. Okay, that is really not helpful because it puts all the burden on the prospect to communicate to us what we mean about interest, plus we didn't outline for them what the next step is. I love this analogy. One of the things that Blythe and I both had a lot of training in, a marketing framework that uses the analogy of a guide. And we're saying that you as the services provider are the guide to them. And in a movie, think about this. The guide is always the person saying, hey, Luke Skywalker, I know you have a problem, and I know the ways of the Force. I can help you. Or, hey, Harry Potter, I know why you have that scar. I can help you become the grand wizard that you're supposed to be. Right? Guides know what to do. And when you say things that are vague and timid, then you're not instilling confidence. So let me show you what a really strong call to action email would look like. Feel free to take a picture of it. I'm going to give you my contact information at the end, and I can send you some more resources. But I want you to notice that I'm very clear about what I'm asking of them as a next step, and I'm also naming what I'm going to do next. Those are the really, really key parts. Pretend that I have a booth and that I am the owner of a managed service provider firm. Okay, so that's the way my email is written. So pretend that's what I'm doing. Hi, name. That's my prospect. It was a pleasure to meet you during SQL Bits. You mentioned that you are considering using a third party to help you with your database needs. Would you like to visit one day next week? Okay, pause. This is my ask, right? The point of my email I'm getting to very quickly, which is, we met, we said we're going to talk. Do you still want to talk? Second paragraph. I'm free the week of March 21st, each afternoon after 2. Please name a time that works for you, and I'll send over a meeting invitation. If we don't connect this week over email, I will call you Friday so we could get a meeting on the calendar. Sincerely, me. P.S. If you prefer, you can just use my online calendar booking, because maybe you're traveling the week of the 21st. Maybe that doesn't work for you. Okay, there's several things I want you to see from this. One, the whole point was to ask to set the meeting. 2, I named some times I was available, so we try not to have 3 or 4 back and forths. So I'm trying to be flexible. Number 3, and the most important thing I want you to take from this second point, is that you need to say what you're going to do next. And this is the part that usually make people's skin crawl a little bit. Thank you for the nods. Because they're like, oh, God, I don't want to sound like the person on the word cloud. But you can use the passive voice. You can say, if we don't connect over email, right? I didn't say, if you don't write me back. I didn't say that. If we don't connect this way, here's what I'm going to do. Okay, the reason you want to do that is because you're still building trust, so you have a chance to show that you're going to do the thing you said you're going to. And the other thing is, because you're people who want to sell like good humans and you're full of integrity, once you put yourself out there and you say this, you'll do it. If you don't name what you're going to do next, when your reminder comes up on your calendar, or if you're really organized and you use a CRM and it comes up in your CRM, you're going to look at the name and you're going to think, if she were really interested, she would have written me back by now. I wonder why she hasn't gotten back to me. I felt like our call went well, but now they're being weird. Right? You start making up a story. You remove barriers when you drive action. So something like this, but in your own words, is what I would recommend. Third point, then we'll have a little time for questions, is people avoid follow-up. A common mistake is they avoid follow-up. Most people will try someone one time. A significant number of people I work with that become my clients will try people 2 times. So they'll say, I'll do 1 email, I'll leave 1 message. I'll send 1 text, I'll do 1 in-mail. I'll do 2 emails, I'll do 2 phone calls. Almost nobody, even the sales professionals, they start to feel uncomfortable after 2 times because they don't want to be the word cloud person. They don't want to be pushy and intrusive. So this is where all of this comes together. Number 1, you don't have to feel lame, and you don't have to say, I'm just following up, or I'm just checking in, which feels not valuable, right? You don't have to do that if you have marketing things to share. Because you could say, did you notice on our website that we have this great case study about such and such? I want to make sure you saw it. And I'm following up from SQL Bits. Would you like to talk next Thursday? Right? Don't presume they've read everything that's out there that your company has produced. They haven't. This is why you want to have webinars to invite people to. It's why you want to be able to ask if they're going to the next conference. It's why you want to put them in your email sequence with their permission, right? Is that you want to have reasons to reach out. We also rotate the methods. So I am a real fan. I call them different modes. So my typical order is, I will send an email asking for a time to talk. Then I will call if they don't reply. I will leave a voicemail where I tell them I'm sending another email so that they can go look for it. And then I will try them on LinkedIn. That's 4 times, and that's twice more than most people will. Then, if I still don't hear, I'll give myself a little break. I change my messaging, and I start again. There's tons and tons and tons and tons of research that says that it's after the 4th or 5th time that people follow up. It's not after the 2nd or 3rd. So the reason I want to make this point here too is that so much of what happens in sales is it's like living or dying between our, in our brain, between our ears. Because it's the stories we tell ourselves that keep us from taking action. We decide, oh, they must think I'm too expensive, or oh, they must have changed their mind, or they felt coerced at the conference, but now they're home, they don't want to talk to me anymore. You don't decide that for them. Okay? You let them be a grown adult and tell you if they want to talk or not, and your job is to ask if they want to. How are we doing on time, Blythe? Do we have time for questions? Okay.
Yeah, we sure do.
Okay, so we've got time for questions, and I don't want to forget. Let me show you this. Yeah, so we want to describe what we do clearly in not super technical languages, because you want to assume that a CFO or a COO or someone who may or may not have as technical a background as you is going to read it. You want to practice having great sales conversations, and you're always thinking about this issue of providing value. Blythe has some resources she's going to offer. I have a way you can follow me that I'm going to offer, but now we have time for questions. So do we have any questions that have come up in the chat? Not yet. Okay, so virtual people, if you have any questions, we'll read them for you. Does anyone have a question here? Sales or marketing about anything we've said or a current situation that's challenging you?
So when you're starting out, what kind of proportion of time would you think that you need to spend on this versus actual paid work?
That's a good question.
And also, how do you manage the kind of follow-up? So you've got your sales pipeline.
Yes.
How do you manage that so that you don't spend all your time doing the paid work that you've got?
Yes.
And not keep anything new in?
Super question. Let me repeat the question. When you're first starting out, you have to be generating work and doing the follow-up as well as doing the paid work themselves. So he's saying, what's the percent of time on all of that? I'll tell you what I do, and I'll ask what you do, Blythe. Okay. So one of the things I differentiate is I have something I call a revenue-generating activity. And interestingly, I had a finance firm that said, does that mean sending the invoices? And I don't mean that. A revenue-generating activity is when you initiate and follow up with people. So it's nurturing who are the names you already have. I believe a person can build a practice when they're starting out by themselves. They can do as little as half hour a day of that kind of work. Now remember, the point of the RGA, the point of revenue generating activities is to set the sales call. So you're going to have discovery calls and presentations and demonstrations. You're going to have other things, but you're just dedicating this time to setting it up, setting it up, setting it up. That's the RGA time. That's why it can be as little as that, because you're going to do other selling based on the outcome of people saying yes to those meetings. Does that make sense? The fastest way to feel afraid is to have no funnel. If you have no leads, you're freaked out, you feel obligated to take work that's really below your pay grade, and then you're bitter at yourself, and it's a bad cycle to get into. So you want to get into the practice of always be building pipeline. What would you say, Blythe?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think when I first started as a consultant, it was about 10 hours a week I was spending, but that includes the sales conversation, just as like a line in the sand. One of the things that really helped me, though, like immensely with my pipeline, was creating that really small little I would recommend, an assessment or a training, a mentorship, a couple hours, or something really small that's an easy win for you and the client, and you can sell it quite easily, and then you can automate it. As you grow and as you're getting more high quality, like the more juicy work that you want. So I do a messaging blueprint. That's $3,500, right? And so I can work with you and build your message. And for me, it's a great way to get inside someone's business and figure out if they're a great retainer client, or if they're a really good website candidate, or if there's some really cool work that we can do. But it's only because I've done that work to understand what my services are that I can spend less time when I need to in the sales pipeline, because I have more things I can sell, and it's just easy. I don't know if that, yeah. And there was another question. There was another part to that question.
Well,
is there another part to it?
Yeah, so then, I think that covered.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
covered both.
It was the sort of generating work versus the doing of it.
We have an online.
Yeah.
You've already sort of addressed this, but Holly asks, would you recommend approaching in person or automated?
In person or automated?
Yeah,
Marketing and sales?
approaching.
Both.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah, both.
You automate as much as you can as long as it's personal, right? As long as you're still adding value, and it's not this, we've all had those, those sales messages on LinkedIn, right? Where it's just like, hi, name, here's the thing I sell. Cool, thanks, bye.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think, too, again, remember, I'm a salesperson who is like a marketing lover, but as the business owner of my firm, even when I do a LinkedIn post from my personal profile, I'm picturing a segment of clients Like I'm writing it to someone and not just like a general message out. And that keeps it more interesting because I'm literally thinking of this financial services client or I'm thinking of this software client, in my brain as I'm typing, even if I don't tag them. And that keeps me from making it so general that it's not really landing with anybody. That helps me. But
some things should always be automated. Your email marketing, your nurture campaigns, they should be automated. I had a sales call with a $10 million SaaS company, and they were sending out like the marketing coordinator had to go in and send marketing blasts when someone interacted with something. It's some things you can just automate, right? If somebody enters an email address into your web form because they want your PDF, that PDF should just be sent to them. You shouldn't have to go in and manually do that. So, yeah.
You do want to check those occasionally. We've got that. I'll show you my website in a minute, and Blythe has it too. You can see these as examples. Put yourself on purpose in our funnel and see how you get the emails that come. Question. Thank you. Yes. So I think his question is, tell me if the question is, when you're first starting out and you have to set pricing, how do you figure out where that lands so that you're competitive and you can get some momentum, but you're not giving it away too low? Is that a good summary? Yeah.
Oh, you want me to take that?
Yeah, I can too, but I don't have to talk first every time.
Oh no, you go.
Okay,
go.
So
I'm curious.
Well, I have worked with a lot of startups and across all different industries, and my preferred way of getting going is actually to build a case study by having one or two first clients that are ridiculously inexpensive, and you make sure they know you know this, right? You start out and say, I'm building trust. I need to build a case study. I want to have some data to show, and I'm wondering, in exchange for providing this value for you, would you do some joint marketing with me or allow me to use your name or whatever? And then so let's just, because it's an easier thing for me to wrap my mind around for a second, let's pretend you're going to be a website builder. You could build the first couple websites and do that so that you have something on your portfolio, and then you jump up because now you have a story to tell.
And work is work. Work is work, right? And so, I wouldn't recommend becoming a database T-SQL consultant right out of university, right? You should have at least a couple of years and mentorship under your belt because you're walking into a corporate environment and you are the expert and you are advising them. And so whatever experience you have is experience and it's valuable, okay? So that is really, really important to know. When it comes to pricing, it's, the best pricing advice I ever got was, your pricing is whatever you can say with a straight face, right? There's always kind of the guardrails that what your competitors are charging, what you've heard people saying there. You can do some competitive research, but a lot of times it is your confidence and it is your knowledge and your ability to deliver that's going to determine the pricing. When I started way back in the day, I've been a consultant for a long time. I just $75 an hour. And I found a couple people to pay that, and over the course of my time, now it's well over $300 an hour. If you want to hire me per hour, it's a lot, but it's I've been doing this for long enough, and that's how much and it works. Yeah. Because I have the authority to do that, and so I would say it sounds a little froofy, but I would step into your guideness. Yeah. I would step into your authority and into your expertise and really own it, and they'll pay. They will. Yeah. Couple other things I'll add to that because it's such an important question. Yeah, it really is. A couple more things I would add is that you want to think about your pricing before you're on that call because you already feel nervous. And so I'll give you an example for me. I have sales training classes, I have coaching, I have things I do, but doing paid conference speaking is something I've been ramping up and doing more and more of. So I had to decide how many of those a year am I going to do for free? What am I going to charge for 1 hour on Zoom, 1 hour in person, half day in person, half day on Zoom? I had to figure out all these categories.
Once I mapped it out, which I took into account, what some of my competitors do, when I took that into account, I just felt readier for the question that would come up. I wasn't winging it on the call, so that prep is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I would say, too, is I call it the bitter test. If you have any doubt about what to do and what they're asking you feels a little outside the scope of what you were imagining, there is no problem to say, I would like to sleep on this. I want to think about our conversation. I need a little bit more time. I might come back with some more questions, and I'll be ready to propose something. And I literally, go to bed, say a prayer, get a good night's sleep, and I wake up and I see how I feel in the morning, because I have learned that when I feel stressed for time, pipeline seems low, whatever the reason is, I undercharge and I'm bitter. Later, I'm bitter. So because you get to set your pricing, you really want to be in a good frame of mind, and don't let them rush you. They'll wait. You do a good job running the sales call and they feel connected to you and they like you, they'll wait. They'll respect that you want some time to deliberate, because you're thinking about a long-term relationship with them, not just one transaction. Time for one more question? Yeah. Oh, 2 questions quickly? Okay, go ahead.
2 online questions.
Okay, let's take one and then I'll stay after and do another. Okay?
So Rajesh asks, as an introvert, how would I go outside my comfort zone
Yes.
to get out there? It can be very draining.
Yes, I love this question. The question was, what do I do as an introvert? Which is probably a high percentage of you all, I would guess. How do I go outside my comfort zone and do that? This is why the 70-30 is so powerful, and why I'm going to say, remember in that discovery call, I said if you have a few good how and what questions that get you started, and Rajesh, I'm going to offer an email sequence that gives some video classes, so be sure to sign up for those, because I'll model some of this for you. But this is why I think an introvert has a big advantage. Because extroverts love to hear themselves talk, and they love to get energy from it.
They fill the space.
They fill the space.
With
They feel
words.
nervous about
Yeah,
silence.
yeah.
And I say that, as an extrovert. I think introverts have so much advantage because they can just sit and wait for someone to think. And there are advantages both ways. And I think it's a misnomer that you need to be an extrovert. So I'll follow up with Rajesh more on that. Last question.
It's kind of similar to the other question before. If you've got an idea for a product or service which has kind of received some enthusiasm, but it's not specific enough, like not necessarily a DBA consultant or whatever, what should you do then? Is it too early to be even thinking of doing anything? Or what's the best way of...
Can I answer that?
Or should you not be selling it?
That is my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So,
Repeat the question.
okay, so the question is, if you have a product or service, you have an idea for a product or service, when do you start thinking about selling it? Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. Like if
Yeah.
people are keen on it,
Yes.
you don't yet know whether you can sell it or whether you dare sell it.
So you need a couple of things. The first thing you need is you need to understand what problem it solves, and if it scales. So if you're working for a consulting company, I've come across a lot of consultants who work for consulting companies who go out on their own because they have an idea that fits with one of the clients and they want to create something. But you have one use case. You have one use case that tells you that it works in one organization, and you don't know if it's a product market fit in any other organization. And it might be really good technically, but you need to talk to more people, right? You need to talk to more people. You need to make sure that other people would want this. If you can give me 4 organizations where they were like, yeah, we'd buy that, then you've really got something, okay? And the second is, what problem does it solve?
In their words.
In their words.
In the prospect's words.
So explain the business problem that product serves. You got both of those, then we can talk about selling it, for sure. Yeah.
We can stick around with questions afterwards, but I hear everybody wrapping up and I'm going to get in trouble. If you email me, and I have a card I can give you as well, and you make the subject line sales process videos, you'll see my funnel. You'll get 3 videos that cover in more depth what we covered today. And you don't have any obligation to do anything with me after that, if you'd like more detail than what we covered. I'll come back to that in a second. This is Blythe. Take a picture of her QR code.
I don't think that works.
Oh, really? Okay, talk to Blythe afterwards.
No.
And this is our contact information for both of us.
We're, instead of hanging out right after, we're going to go down to the community zone. So Catherine and I will be in the community zone right after this session because I think they're probably going to want the room.
Another room?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is we're supposed to do the survey. Sorry. We're supposed to do the survey, and I forgot to put the QR code up.
Okay, people should be able to get to it.
Okay. Please do the survey through your app. Okay. Please do the survey through your app.
Yes. I'm sorry about that. I forgot.
Okay. Yeah. I forgot to.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.